everybody. Hello. My name is Eric, and I'm excited to introduce you to our next speaker, Lydia Chiu. I had a chance to share a meal with her last night at the party and get to know her a little bit and go just a step beyond, what you may have read on the website, and just wanted to share a few things with you about Lydia. She's probably going to share some things as well. I hope I'm not spoiling too much, but she has been in our community for many a year. I'll let her tell you how far back that goes, but that's just really awesome to come to these events and see a lot of new faces, but then also a lot of veterans who've been around for a long time, especially from early days of the software and Ellis Labs. So she'll tell you more about that. She's a partner at JubJub, and she's in California. We shared some similarities in that we don't get snow where either of us live, which is kind of a weird thing. Like, I'm really cold here this weekend because I live in Savannah, Georgia, and it's like I'm struggling not wearing a jacket right now. But yeah, she's in California. She's passionate about moving her clients forward through the services that her company is able to provide. She's worked with some pretty big names you may have heard of. American Express, you may have heard of them. Honda, Nissan, HP, a lot of stuff. But one thing that I really loved to hear last night is that she really loves connecting with the smaller companies that she can really get more personal with and affect their businesses and their bottom line. So today, she's here to share with us a little bit about what it takes to share ExpressionEngine and maybe make some stuff up now that it's free. And I'm going to pass it over to Lydia, and she'll get us going.
Thank you so much, Eric. I think his introduction was better than my talk, so that's, thank you, I appreciate that. Yeah, so as you can imagine, I have made a couple of changes to my talk since yesterday. Yeah, we're talking about selling ExpressionEngine, and it's, after yesterday, I pretty much redid some slides, and guess what? It's free. And yeah, how to sell ExpressionEngine. So this is really, I think I'm done now. It's a lot easier. I can just go sit down, right? My talk can be really fast, and we can get to the panel. No, but really, I think that I've been in this community a long time, and I've been a small business owner for a long time, and I've been selling ExpressionEngine for a long time, and so hopefully I can impart some wisdom. Let's see here. So I've been watching a lot of The Office, so there are a couple of Office gifts in here. Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? I am going to do the obligatory background, give you guys a little bit of information about myself. We're going to look at the competitive landscape, so look at how it's changed. Rick talked about that yesterday, how when ExpressionEngine first came around, there were really not that many players, and now there's a bajillion, technical term there, bajillion. We're going to look at some side-by-side comparisons with some specific, at least the folks that we've come up against in sales situations. We're going to look at some of those platforms, which I'm sure you're all very familiar with, and then we'll get to some Q&A. And I really, I want to say I'm not part of Ellis Lab. I am a huge fan, and I have been at every conference except for the Washington D.C. one. I'm just a web developer who's trying to help my clients make the best decisions for their business, and so that's a perspective that I'm coming from. I'm not a salesperson. I'd like this to be interactive too. I think I don't know if you guys were at the project management talk yesterday, but one of the coolest things was that Patrice had some great ideas, and then other people were like, well, have you thought about doing this? And she's like, yeah, that's really awesome. I'm going to put that into my talk next time. So I think one of the great things about these conferences is that we all get good ideas from each other, and that'll take more pressure off of me since this is my first time presenting, if I ask you guys for your good ideas too. So, so thanks. And I think we could all use some extra ammunition when we go into these meetings where everyone wants to use WordPress for absolutely everything that you could possibly imagine. So first I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself and my company. We are celebrating our 20th anniversary. We were founded in 1998. So we've been around for a long time. We're old. We, as Eric mentioned, we're in Southern California. We're in Irvine, which is the OC. And we have a family-friendly dog-friendly office. There's beer on tap. If you guys are ever in Orange County, come on by. We'd love to have you. Why am I telling you guys this? Because we're hiring. So if anybody, if anybody knows anybody in Southern California that wants a job, please let me know. In particular, we're hiring developers. So to give you a little bit about my background, my mother was a computer science teacher, high school computer science teacher. She said, hey, Lydia, when you go to college, you should really major in computer science. And I did what all teenagers do. Forget that, Mom. I'm going to be a doctor. And so I went to college and I majored in biology. And after my sophomore year, I worked at the medical school and checked that doctor thing off the list. So no, I'm not going to do that. I ended up going into environmental engineering, and my first job out of college was pretty much all database work. So environmental engineering means analyzing crap in the air in databases. And when I decided I didn't want to go further in school, I looked around at the job market, and basically the first internet boom was happening, and so anyone who could read really could get a job at an internet company at that time. And I had database background, and so and a little coding background from my mom. I did like code for fun in high school, and I got a job at a startup. That startup happened to be an enterprise software company for content management software. So I don't know if you guys have heard of it. It was called Vignette. It is now open text, and so I spent almost 6 years in their professional services department, and I was a pre-sales engineer and a solutions architect there. So I worked on some decent sites. I worked on like Orbitz and Honda and some other songs. But anyways, so that software it pretty much did about what ExpressionEngine does, but people complained about the price of ExpressionEngine. This was add a few zeros and maybe serve up a lot of website pages. It pretty much did the same thing, if that. I mean, the software actually wasn't that great, to be honest. But so after that, my husband actually started JubJub, and he started it first, and I kind of did some side work. I eventually quit Vignette. I think it was around 2003. We put all of our eggs in the JubJub basket, 2004. And at round about that time, we were trying to figure out how to build websites more efficiently. And we read some article about this guy who was in the music industry who had developed this cool platform. And we thought, oh, we'll check it out. And so I found this for this presentation. Sorry, this is taking so long. That's a 2004 receipt. That was my first EE license that I bought, or actually it was, I think, P-Machine still. So, so that was the first license that we bought. So I've been in this community a very long time. I am horrible about being on Slack, and I'm horrible about being on Twitter, but I really love you guys, and I'm happy to be presenting. So that's my background. As I mentioned, even though I've done some pre-sales, I am not a salesperson. So I don't know if you guys are too young to know what this is from. But this is the salesperson's philosophy, always be closing. I am not going to talk about any sales tactics. I'm not good at any of that stuff. I just like to kind of tell it as it is, and I want to give everybody some ammunition of how to tell it as it is when you're kind of doing these side-by-side comparisons of software that you come up against. Let's see here. But there is one thing. So I sit here saying I'm not sales. There's one thing that working at Vignette taught me. So Vignette software was actually kind of a piece of crap behind the scenes. There's one thing that it taught me is that everybody who works at the company is in sales to some extent. So whether you're just complaining about some little feature on the control panel or making some little comment about the software, when you're in front of your coworkers or you're in front of your clients especially, all of that little stuff can undermine what you're doing. And so I think it's good for everybody to kind of have that mentality that you're all sales to some extent. Okay, oops, wrong way. Okay, so before we dive in to like the competitive stuff, I want to go in with kind of like the approach that we're going to be using, which is there's no best software. Everything's requirements. I stole this from something that Masuka had on his site. So as what did he say? Imitation's how we learn. I think I heard that in the last talk. So anyways, yeah, everything comes down to requirements because for a 4-page site, you're not going to use Drupal, right? And so whatever that you really have to look at the requirements. We're going to talk about that too. Okay, show of hands. So this I remember in the Brooklyn conference, somebody asked how many of you guys work solely on ExpressionEngine. And like a lot of the people raised their hands at that point. So show of hands, how many people work only on ExpressionEngine projects? Okay. We can all be jealous. And how many work with 2 CMSs? How many work with 3 CMSs or more? So yeah, I think it's just changed. The landscape has totally changed. We have clients where one site is on 2 CMSs because they have their main site on ExpressionEngine and their blog is on WordPress, which totally makes sense actually in a lot of ways. So there's if you don't have to touch the blog. So let's take a look. I know yesterday when Rick was talking, he mentioned the when he started P Machine, there was like Movable Type and like 3 other platforms. And now there are a ton of platforms. I mean, there are people estimate that there's approaching 2 billion websites out there just in the world right now. And that's really, really huge. That's about one website for every 4 people in the world, but only half the people in the world have internet access. So people have been creating a lot of blogs, Tumblrs, or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of sites out there. So the way to read this is the chart, and I'm sorry, it's probably, I can't tell how small that is, but I wanted to be able to fit everything on here. So this is really just the percentage usage of platforms. And you can see, no one's surprised, WordPress is like way out there, right? I mean, it's like way, way, way in the lead. And then Joomla, who thought that Joomla still had that much market share? And, and Drupal, and then you've got a ton of stuff, and ExpressionEngine. But what you don't see here, so I was actually very happy to see that ExpressionEngine was still on this page, because after this, there's like 500 more CMSs that this company tracks. So W3 Tech is it's a reliable source for these types of reports, more reliable than Built With, is what Derek told me. So anyways, this is EE it's number 22 on the list. And the other thing, if you look at it, a lot of these things that are in more use don't really apply. Like it's you often wouldn't have a one-to-one matchup of a ExpressionEngine versus Wix or ExpressionEngine versus OpenCart. Those aren't. That's not the kind of. You're not going to see that competition out there. And so really what we're going to talk about today is WordPress and Drupal. I'm going to skip Joomla because I don't know about you guys, but I've never had somebody tell me, no, this site must be built in Joomla. So I've had this, oh help, my Joomla site's been hacked. Can you please take it and put it in something else? But I've never had the, you must use Joomla. And so we're going to skip that. We're going to look at WordPress, we're going to look at Drupal, and we're going to look at Craft. So this is just, you're not even meant to, these are like not even the 500 other ones that are like out there but below EE in terms of the usage stats. So there's a ton of CMS out there. And I already kind of went through this. This is the thing I'm worst at. I don't stick to my slides, sorry. Okay, so before we get to the actual sales, I think we have to talk about what do they need. So again, there's no best software. It is all requirements. So what are the requirements? So I'll just kind of go through this pretty quickly. But what we got to look at is, what are they actually building? Is it a 4-page site, or is it something with like member functionality? The other key things, what's your budget? I laugh because, 1 in 10 people is going to tell you that, maybe. I don't know about you guys, but like you can kind of start like, hey, are you in the 20 to 50 range? Are you in the 5 to 10 range or whatever? But they never actually tell you. But that is important to kind of assess. And we do actually do something that is, we call our compatibility estimate, a compatibility check. And we will get very brief requirements and tell them, okay, so something like this will typically be in this range or that range. And that way we understand if we should go on our next date, Does your site currently have I'm one ahead, sorry. Does your site currently have a CMS? So that'll give you an indication, help you figure out kind of like what their sensibilities are as well. How many users? That's a key thing. Like, there's a limited number of CMSs you would want to push them to consider if they actually have multiple memberships and all of that kind of stuff. How complex is your content? Is it a just sort of page type content, or is it a manufacturing site where there's 20 different pieces of data in 5 different languages? And all of these questions are just so that you can justify using ExpressionEngine at the end. What are your security and availability requirements? That one I love because, of course, that one's really easy to get people on board with. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about the factors that drive someone's decision and how you can kind of come at those strategically when you're talking to somebody about ExpressionEngine. So, cost. Had to change this slide. So it's free. But seriously, there's still obviously beyond the software, there's a lot of costs. So we're going to go into that. So I think that generally, if this is a big part of a decision, but hopefully it's not the only consideration. We do try to figure that out pretty soon on our in our sales cycle. You want to try to determine that pretty quickly. Excuse me. If cost is the only consideration, we pretty much tell people we're probably not the right fit because they're always going to have somebody whose nephew can build you a WordPress site for $100. So, but generally the leads that come in that's not super cost sensitive. So let's look at the costs of the platforms that we're looking at. So let's look at software. So ExpressionEngine no longer base cost. We're looking at the add-ons, like you all know. And that's just sort of a ballpark range. If you're signed up for the EE Harbor thing, probably most sites after the EE Harbor, there's probably not a whole lot of, that's probably on the high end. WordPress, if you're gonna actually buy, legitimately licensed stuff, you're probably gonna end up with $200 to $300 as well between the theme and Gravity Forms and WordFence and all that stuff that you need. Drupal, you can also get very reasonable themes, and maybe you need a couple of paid add-ons. How many of you guys are Drupal? Any of you build Drupal sites? Okay, that's smart. All of you, that's smart. So I can't blame you. And there's craft. So craft, you're going to have basically what the price point is very familiar, right? It's like I think $300, and then you've got some add-ons after that. So we kind of estimate $600 to $800. So that's, the software. This slide didn't really change because I don't think the actual software cost was ever really a sales issue, because when you itemized out, it was never really a thing. But let's talk about development. So the cost of actual development for some of these other platforms. So we used to be in a lot of competitive situations. We actually had a big client that half of their sites were on ExpressionEngine and half of them were on Drupal, and then they got bought out by some big multinational conglomerate who said, all of your stuff must be open source. And so then we had to bid on our sites to convert them into Drupal. And they brought in some other folks who were Drupal experts to also bid on these sites. And somehow I found out what their proposals were. So the development costs for, say, a Drupal versus ExpressionEngine, this client would say to me, well, how do I know that it's not just that you know ExpressionEngine better and that's why it's cheaper, it takes you less time, and that's not it. I would estimate that just because Drupal is it's just more hardcore programming. It is gonna be about twice as much in the development costs. And it's just because things take longer. And I mean, of course, it depends on the site. But for us, at least, that's how it is. And this site was it's a decently sized kind of site for a medium-sized client. And the estimate for the entire, that's not our estimate, that was somebody else's estimate. But the estimate for the entire project and our estimate for the same project on EE was 45,000. Yes, Adrian.
Did I miss you saying what system the other estimate was using?
Oh, sorry, this is Drupal. So this estimate for the entire project. Yeah, no, I probably didn't say it. So for Drupal, the bid, so this is to bid on this same bit of work, was significantly larger for Drupal. And the ongoing costs are also very expensive, just because you're basically maintaining custom code in a lot of ways. Let's go here. So let's look at upgrade costs. So ExpressionEngine, now you're just going to be looking, it's free, but now you're going to be looking at the add-on upgrades. And again, I think it's all very predictable and all very reasonable. WordPress, it's the same, if not more actually, because I think they figure they got to get their money somehow, and I've just experienced we've been spending a lot of money lately on upgrading WordPress add-ons. Drupal, there are fixes, but if you there is no upgrade for major versions. So, and I can keep my Drupal comments low. I don't know if you guys, even though if you don't develop in Drupal, do you encounter Drupal in a competitive thing? Okay, so I will continue to make my comments then. Sorry.
Cool. I thought they couldn't do pro add-ons or something.
No, there are some.
So
Yeah, there are. Yeah. Yeah, no, you can. There are some. There are some paid add-ons and paid themes. There's a lot.
WordPress, you can do paid whatever, but it all still has to be open source, right?
Yeah.
That was it. You're right. And it's the same with WordPress.
Yeah. But in general, Drupal. Well, we'll go into the security in a second. Okay. So yeah, Drupal. I spent a decent amount of time in the Drupal user group because we had all these clients that were using Drupal, and pretty much the consensus was if you're going to do a major version upgrade, it's that's when you do your site redesign, and it is a major. If you think people had a hard time upgrading from EE2 to EE3, just make them do a Drupal upgrade, and they'll think it was the easiest thing ever. And so. The upgrades it's just like building another site for the most part, cost-wise. And craft, it's very similar, the software and add-ons and upgrades. So there's not a whole lot of differentiator there. So I think overall, to summarize with cost, Drupal is hugely expensive. Sure, the software is free, but the build, the maintenance, it's super expensive. In general, WordPress is going to be a little cheaper because you can get cheap labor, and the craft expression engine kind of both, in the middle. So let's talk about my favorite topic whenever I'm trying to sell Expression Engine competitively. Let's talk about security. So, So we have, JubDrub has, we do hosting as well. We're kind of like, we position ourselves as boutique hosting. And, but we do have a hosting team. We're not like mass market hosting or anything. It's primarily for the sites that we develop to make it easier. My husband runs the hosting part of our business. So if I need a sysadmin, it's easy to go and ask him to do something. Our hosting team takes these like SANS Institute cybersecurity courses all the time. And so one time they were, the most recent one, they asked the instructor, because he was talking about all of these like threat detection and all this kind of stuff. And they asked him, so what do you think about WordPress? And he's like, oh, it's fine. I just don't use it for any sites I care about. So I thought that was awesome. That's pretty much it. It's like so there is an organization that keeps a database of the common vulnerabilities and exposures, the CVEs. And if you look, I have the link to the place at the back of my slides, so you guys can use that for reference. WordPress has had 279. Okay, they're the leaders in these common vulnerabilities. Drupal has had 177. So in general, Drupal, it's open source and it has a better security track record, but there are definitely issues. Craft has 6. Expression Engine only 4. And so if you look at the amount of time that Expression Engine has been on the market, this is just like lifetime, okay? And so you look at the amount of time, how mature Expression Engine is, and like the fact that there are, this is really fantastic. You could, everybody should be talking this up. And I know that there are some stats about how quickly you guys addressed those, and I don't have those at my fingertips, but they were also impressive. So let's see here. You can look at this. This is another stat from Securi. Do you guys know Securi? If you don't have to deal with WordPress or Drupal, you might not. But basically, they keep stats. They help you with hacked sites, and they keep stats on it. And again, WordPress is ahead. So they are way out there, the leaders in infections and malware. And then there's Joomla. Magento, surprisingly, actually was up there. And I was not aware that there were that many issues on Magento sites. And then Drupal, and it kind of drops off from there. I'm sure you guys all talk about this stuff, but you could just go on for days about how, like, when this is the strongest thing that we hit in the sales cycle, when somebody's like, oh, but everybody's telling me to use WordPress, and no, it's not good to use WordPress for your site, intranet site that is going to require some logins, and but we always hit this very hard, and there's a lot of stats. You just Google any problem with WordPress. And so the one question I think with, and this is what I heard people talking about too, what about now that it's going to be open source? Are we going to start seeing the same problems? And I think that's a good question. It's definitely a valid question. However, I think that, so there's a couple things, I think. One is the way that Expression Engine is going open source, it's like not the typical open source thing, right? It's like the best of both worlds, because normally open source is there's this huge mishmash, and there's some kind of product, and there's all this kind of stuff. But we've got this product that has had like the singular shepherding, through this, and it's super mature product and fully featured, and now it's becoming open source. So it's this really stable, secure platform. On top of that, I don't know if you guys all know, Ellis Lab participates in HackerOne, which is a bug contest type thing. And so they they hire an outside company to try to hack into, they submit to this organization that does this on all sorts of companies, applications, and so it's a third-party source to try to find security vulnerabilities. So even though it hasn't been open source, it's been tested out there by an open invitation to hackers. And so there's the security record is not this like, you probably have, security by obscurity. Nobody knows it, nobody uses it, but that's not the case. It's that, they have actively invited hackers to come and try to find vulnerabilities, and they still had the best score. So, so anyways, I don't think that the open source, and beyond that, there's still going to be the shepherding of the product. I don't want to speak. I don't actually know. So, but my understanding is that, see again, had to change the talk a little bit. There's going to be a shepherding of the product from the folks at Ellis Lab. So I think, again, best of both worlds. So what else affects a buyer's decision? So there are a lot of government, education clients, public sector clients that have to use open source. And I don't know about you guys, but that affected us because we had clients that there were these mandates that came down, or we couldn't get into clients because ExpressionEngine was not open source and we didn't want to put ourselves through the Drupal or WordPress thing. And so, that's a question that a lot of people ask, and it's awesome to be able to say yes, it is. And I think if we're looking at now those three that I was talking about, who you probably see in the competitive scenarios, if you're looking at Drupal, WordPress, or Craft, now that's another differentiator there. Yeah, see, this is a new slide from last night. So just because I think have to kind of pitch or change the pitch now a little bit, or change the mindset about the pitch, we can now include why open source, like when you're talking to somebody about using ExpressionEngine, you can include all the stuff about why open source is so great. I used to say why the slide used to go the other way, but now it's, there's a lot of stuff that I think as it comes up and as the open source thing really gets out there for ExpressionEngine, we can use. Let's see here. These are just, oh my gosh, it's 12:37. Okay. I'm just going to kind of go through this sort of quickly, or 2:37. So all of these are great reasons to use open source, and now they are great reasons also to use ExpressionEngine. So you've got the, more eyeballs looking at it. You've got more people to choose from, hopefully, and the security through transparency. That's kind of like the other side of what I was just talking about. But I think that the security is going to be great no matter what. Okay, so I think another decision factor for a lot of people is the support. So what kind of support options are there for these various products? And so, WordPress, you can buy their VIP package, and that's expensive, right? You can, Drupal, you can sign up with Acquia, and that's like super expensive. We have actually, a huge selling point for us has been, there are a lot of our clients that really love the warm fuzzy of the paid support. And I'm just going to put this out there because I heard this. That was you, Carolyn. I think that it's true though. I think that the support is a really great. It's a really great option. And we have a client that has signed up on your support. I don't think they've ever submitted a ticket, but they just like knowing it's there. So yeah, I know, they're a good client. Okay, so let's talk about some more factors. I'll try to kind of keep this going. Okay, so other factors that will affect somebody's buying decision. So I think this next one is kind of a hard one. The community. Yeah, I didn't do the fancy drop-down thing on this one. Okay, so community. I think this one has been, I think our community obviously is awesome. Like this community here is awesome. But if somebody Googles, I want to hire an ExpressionEngine developer, a lot of time craft comes up on the paid ads. And so it can be a little tricky to kind of get that. But we're going to get through that. But I think that this is one area where the WordPress and Drupal to a certain extent really have a competitive advantage. We've seen client or prospects often reference that. Now, what we always say though, to counteract that, is that the ExpressionEngine community, while it might not be as large, it is a lot of experienced developers. The quality is very good. I would feel comfortable recommending, I've always said this, that I would feel comfortable recommending to people, anybody on the Pro Network, go look at the Pro Network. But now we've got this wonderful, see, there's all this stuff I had to change about my slides. But now we have this wonderful, the ECA Community Association also. And I think that there's so much potential there to really help shore up the competitive gaps when you're talking about, the community there. Adoption, so, hardly anybody uses XYZ. I think that it's easy enough to explain using, it's because aside from WordPress, hardly anybody uses anything. I mean, so I think you can take that out of the equation pretty easily. Functionality, this one is the real, I mean, you can get to the, this one I don't think this one becomes a big issue when you're talking in sales, because it's either they want, like compared to WordPress, they're either going to be able to, they're going to want to be able to install anything and everything and not care about the security to get all this functionality, or they're going to be okay with a more cultivated community of add-ons. And so I think the functionality argument kind of goes hand in hand with the security, and that's how to diffuse that one. Flexibility, it is, again, you can, I think, well, actually I have another, the next slide I'll get to the flexibility. Control panel user experience, I mean, one of my biggest, I think, the most successful sales technique is just to give a demo. Like if you demo ExpressionEngine compared to WordPress or Drupal, oh my gosh, it's like WordPress is horrible. People think, oh, it's so easy, but then actually but that's just because they've never seen anything else. So if you can actually get yourself to a demo there, I think that's great. Now, and we'll talk about the craft side of things in a minute. So then ease of upgrades. And I really think that everything that has been going on with the product has made the upgrade thing so much easier. And now that you don't even have to pay for the upgrades, it's going to be even better. Now that we're over the EE2, not over, but now that if anyone starting new would not be dealing with a 2 to 4 upgrade, we're okay. So one of the things that we like to say as far as like the flexibility and stuff, one of the phrases that we use a lot in our sales meetings is, with WordPress, you have to fit the content into the design, but with ExpressionEngine, you get to design the site for your content. And I think that really sums it up. It's like, I mean, okay, you can do custom themes in WordPress, but then like, why don't you just build your own PHP site at that point? So I know I'm biased, sorry. But anyways, that's kind of a little soundbite that we like to use. Okay, let's talk about the roadblocks. How do you get over these roadblocks? So one of the biggest things that we hear, and this is what I'm going to open it up to, when I try to get answers to ExpressionEngine questions from the Google machine, I just see a lot of unanswered questions. So this is, I think this is one of the toughest things. If there is a developer on staff where you're trying to pitch to, this is one of the toughest things. And you can tell them, just go on Slack and everybody's there. But I think we as a community have to come up with something to, you have to come up with something. But I will say, I do hope that that's something that the community association will be able to, not to like dump it all on you guys, sorry, but I think that there is hope for at least having more positive materials out there for developers and people who are looking for answers in ExpressionEngine and that kind of thing. What I typically say, and everybody, this is just me, but what I typically say when I get told this is that if you compare it to if you compare the amount of help that you would need on any given ExpressionEngine installation versus a Drupal installation, you don't need as much help as, there just aren't as many questions out there, I don't think, because it's just cleaner. You just don't run into as many roadblocks, and you don't run into as much junk as there is in the other ecosystems. Where do I find other E developers if you disappear? Hopefully the Community Association will help with that too. I think I'm running out of time. Okay, so I saved the best to, not the best. I saved the most fun question to last. So I have had this happen a lot, actually. So I'm like midway through the sales cycle, and I've been pitching ExpressionEngine, and they're like, I Googled ExpressionEngine, and Craft came up, and I saw this stuff. And so we're going to go there just for a minute, because I think that it is tough. The systems, if you look at functionality, cost, security, I think a lot of it does come down to personal preference. And so it is tricky. But I think what we try to stress is the maturity of the product, the maturity of the community, the track record. And again, ultimately it's demos, and it comes down to requirements. And I think that side by side, especially with EE4, it is, a lot of it is personal preference. Do you like Twig? Do you not like Twig? Those types of things. But that is hard. That's the most competitive. I don't know that I have all the answers, so I certainly don't have all the answers. So at this point, I thought it would be a good time to kind of open it up and talk about the roadblocks, but I don't think we have much time. We can talk about the roadblocks. I wanted to, before we do that though, I want to just say thank you, because I appreciate you guys listening to me rant about this stuff. And I want to say thank you to Ellis Lab, because I really feel like I owe the success of my business has depended on you guys for so long, and I really appreciate it. And so that's been great. I want to say thanks to the organizers, because you guys have done such a good job. This is really awesome. And thanks to the Community Association too. So with that, let's see, here's the last. What questions do you guys have? No questions? Can I ask you guys a question? I want to go back to the roadblocks. Are there roadblocks that you guys are seeing that are not these? Is it generally one of those three?
Yeah, I definitely just get some, like, well, it isn't WordPress, which is ultimately,
Yeah.
I don't even know, how to deal with that, because sometimes you tell them all the reasons, and they're still like, but it's not WordPress.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no, it's not, and that's actually a really good thing.
Yeah. Right. Yes.
I should note, I do both EE and Craft, and I get this with both EE and Craft.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Caroline?
My biggest roadblock is IT departments.
Yeah.
They like to insist on WordPress on the outset, but when you're already in a project situation on an ongoing thing, they don't like to upgrade the servers. They don't want to upgrade that ExpressionEngine for it. They don't want to put new assets in place so that they have something new to control.
I 100% agree with you. We have a client that is on a like 252. They're a big company, and their internal IT team has been arguing about where to move their hosting, and they're just sitting on 2.5 something, and it's and they've got InfoSec up their butt about it, and they still haven't changed. So.
If there were more resources directed toward the IT departments of the world, I think they'd be put to good use.
So here is an idea or a suggestion. What we are trying to do internally is take this and actually create a white paper and have it be like targeted to like ExpressionEngine versus WordPress. And I think, maybe this is a community association thing, but I think what would be great is to have those types of materials available. Like I would be, after we finish this, I will give it to, after we do the white paper, I'll give it to all of you guys. You can white label it and put it on all your sites, because I think that's only going to help everybody. Because when somebody Googles ExpressionEngine versus WordPress, we want that to come up, right? And yeah.
We're actually working with the University of Virginia right now about having this project on that.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. So this is great. We can all talk about this, because I think that this is one of the power, the power of this community could be to come up with those materials, and it will really help everybody sell more ExpressionEngine sites. So, thank you.